Welcome to what passes for an excuse for a cooking show by popular request. Cass, I am teaching you how to make my chili recipe. This is going to be kind of a mess, but here we go. There's a crap load of ingredients over here on my counter, and let's get started really quick. Now, most of these ingredients are going to be in teaspoons and tablespoons. In American measures, teaspoon measure is about the same between the US and European, Australian teaspoons. They should be very, very similar. The tablespoons, the Australian tablespoon is a lot larger than the US and European tablespoons. My recipe calls for 1.5 tablespoons of chili powder, American. That's a little over 1 tablespoon, 1.109 Australian tablespoons. So if you use an Australian tablespoon, you'll want to round it a bit and just use 1 instead of 1.5, or it's going to be a little extra chili powdery. The only measurement that's really different, significantly different, is the ground beef or beef mince. This is 1 pound of ground beef. I have 2 pounds of ground beef here. 2 pounds of ground beef is equal to 907.2 grams. So I don't know what the easiest way of getting that measurement is. Something in that neighborhood. Mom's original recipe called for 1.5 pounds. I just rounded up to 2 pounds so I don't have to split a pound package. And it's meatier and I like it better that way anyway. So next, I'll get started making chili. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and put the 2 pounds of ground beef into my crock pot. I'm going to make this in the crock pot. You can make it on the stove. That's how my mom always used to make it. If you make it on the stove, you can use a higher fat content ground beef. If you make it in the crock pot, you may need to pre-brown the ground beef, because otherwise you're going to have a lot of extra fat in it. I use super lean. This is 92% lean ground beef, 8% fat. So it does really well cooking it up in the crock pot without having a whole bunch of extra fat to drain off. It'll be fine if you just pop it all in there. If you use a higher fat content ground beef, you may want to brown it on the stove and drain a lot of the fat off before you put the rest of the ingredients in. And then with that ground beef, I'm going to add in garlic. The recipe calls for 3 cloves of garlic. I have pre-minced garlic because it's easier that way. And 1/2 teaspoon is equal to a clove. I like garlic, so I'm just going to put in 2 teaspoons of minced garlic, which is about 4 cloves. And that's fine with me because I like garlic. Next, we're going to go for an onion. What kind of onion? Doesn't really matter. This is kind of a medium to largish onion. I got a sweet onion because I like those better. You can use any kind of onion you like. And because I am extremely picky with onion, I'm going to use my mandolin slicer, basically julienne this onion. And it's going to be awesome. Watch this. So I've got my mandolin slicer with the julienne attachment on the thinnest setting here. And I'm going to just pop this right on top of the crock pot. Julienne the crap out of this onion. Let's see this. This is cool. I hate chopping onions. I hate mincing onions. This way, I can get most of the way done with an onion before it even starts to make me want to cry. That's pretty awesome. And I can get very, very fine pieces of onion that cook into where they're indistinguishable from the meat, which is the way I like it. That's about as much as I'm going to get off of here, I think. I'm going to try a little bit more. Nope, starting to fall apart. Check this out, though. That is very fine onion. Now, I'm going to start the next part here. The recipe calls for 2 bouillon cubes dissolved in 1 cup of water. These are my bouillon cubes. Don't know if you have anything like this outside of the US, but you probably have something similar. And I take 2 of these dissolved in 1 cup of water to make a double strength beef bouillon. All right, so I've got a cup of water that was just boiling a minute ago. And I'm going to take 2 of these little cubes here. And start the process of them dissolving in this very hot water. While they're doing that, I'm going to add all the spices. There's several spices involved here, and if you decide that you like this and you want to make it often, it might save you some time and hassle down the road to pre-mix your spice blend. I have these little, in my cabinet I have 3 of them left that I can just toss in here whenever I'm getting ready to make chili. But I'll just do it from scratch this time without any of the shortcuts. This chili powder, I need 1.5 tablespoons. Tablespoon and a half. There's 1. And that's about 1/2. Again, Australian tablespoons are significantly larger, so use 1 heaping tablespoon instead of more. So, and then most everything else is 1 teaspoon of all the measurements. Oregano. I've got this, which, ow, gonna rip my fingernail off because that's the way we cook. There we go. There's a teaspoon of oregano. Got cumin, ground cumin, teaspoon of that, very pungent odor, teaspoon of salt, add salt. Teaspoon of sugar. It's regular granulated white sugar. I want 1/2 teaspoon of ground black pepper. I'm just gonna eyeball that. I don't feel like getting another teaspoon measured dirty. I have cayenne pepper. Recipe originally called for 1/2 teaspoon. That's my mom's. My mom's kind of a wuss when it comes to heat. She can't really take it. So I prefer to kick it up I'm going to put in about 2 teaspoons of cayenne pepper. And again, I go through cayenne pepper really fast, so. Had to buy a new one. If you dump a bunch of extra in there by accident, it'll just be nice and spicy. And I've done that before. It's not bad. Not bad. And then I'm going to go ahead and combine all the spices, the onion and the garlic, in with the ground beef that's in the pot, in the crock pot. So it'll kind of start absorbing the flavors of all the spices. And it'll incorporate the ground beef with the onion and the garlic, so they're not all in big lumps. It'll help the ground beef break up more instead of being in big chunks when it cooks. And we'll also stir it up again here after the liquids are in. This is pretty well incorporated, I think. Ground beef is more that lovely burgundy color from the chili powder, less bright pink. And now I'm going to stir up this double strength bouillon. Still a little bit of undissolved bouillon cube here. So hopefully it'll dissolve itself as I stir. That hasn't yet. Let's see if I can smash it. Yeah, it's soft. I can smash it. When I make this for someone who is gluten-free, the bouillon cubes here have MSG in them, monosodium glutamate. There's a beef stock paste that you can use to rehydrate to make beef stock that I used when my sister-in-law was here. That helped keep it from becoming painful for her to eat. So this is all stirred up. I'm going to go ahead and pour that into the beef. And then I'm going to add a can of tomato sauce. This is a 15 ounce or 425 gram can of tomato sauce. It is basically just tomato puree with a little bit of salt, sugar, pepper, and citric acid. So pureed tomato, whatever you have that gives a similar kind of tomatoey flavor. See, the texture of this is like thinner than ketchup, and it's not really got a lot of spice to it. That just gives it a little bit of flavor, not a lot of like a ketchup-y flavor. And then I'm going to add 2 cans of hot chili beans. Chili beans basically are pinto beans in a sauce. The sauce is made of tomato paste, chili powder, spices, garlic, a little bit of salt, etc. I sent you a recipe for how to make your own chili beans if you can't find them pre-canned with a sauce in them. There are a few different brands in the U.S. that make chili beans and sauce. There's a mild version and a hot version. I like the hot version, it's spicier, but my mom makes it with the mild version, as you might think. I'm going to go ahead and open these cans. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got 2 cans of hot chili beans. I'm going to dump them in, liquid and all. And then I'm going to give it another good stir to incorporate the beans down into the meat mixture. kind of break up the meat some so that when it cooks in the crock pot, it doesn't cook into big lumps of ground beef in the middle of all this liquid. It's going to incorporate the liquid down in there and the meat and the beans. So this looks pretty good. Smells pretty good. The only thing left is the secret ingredients. Chocolate. Now my mom originally, when she made it when I was a kid, would use Hershey's Kisses and just plop one on top. Dark chocolate is really good for deepening up the flavor of the tomato and the chili. And I am a chocolate fiend. So, I mean, if one is good, 3 is better. So, I like the way it deepens the flavor, kind of gives it a little bit of a mole taste to it. You really can't necessarily taste the chocolate or the sweetness all that much, but it adds something to there. And I'm just going to poke these down under the surface. Now, all that's left to do is to cook this. My crock pot has a high and a low. I think it tastes great if it's like simmered on low all day long for like 8+ hours. It's delicious that way. If you're in a rush, you can do it on high for 4 hours or so. If you're really in a rush, do it on the stovetop. Let it simmer for a couple hours. But if you've got the time, just put it together, pop it in the crock pot in the morning before you leave for work, come back. It's amazing. The longer it simmers, the better. And it's even better reheated. So I will show you tomorrow because I'm getting ready to go to bed here tonight. And you get to see what it looks like when I start it and what it looks like when I finish it and I serve it and I eat it. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning. I haven't had coffee yet. But I have the chili that's been in the fridge overnight in the crock pot insert. I'm going to pop it in and turn it on low. This is going to simmer all day until I get home tonight around 7:30, so just under 12 hours. It's going to be awesome. I'll bring you back then. It has been 11.5 hours since I put this chili in the crock pot, and this smells amazing in here. I actually pulled into the garage, and the car doors and windows were all closed, and I could smell it from there, and it's amazing. So, this crock pot, I'm going to turn off this crock pot full of chili. I end up using as 8 equal servings. Let me show you what this looks like. When I first turn off the crock pot, take the lid off, there's a little bit of fat at the top. Since this is such low-fat ground beef, I'm not going to worry about it. Again, if you were using a higher fat content ground beef, I would probably brown it first, drain off the fat, and then make it. I'm just going to stir it all up well. Make sure it's all incorporated together. There's some larger chunks of beef in here. Try to break those up a little bit. And usually the chocolate is still kind of hanging out together. So I try to mix that in well as well. And then 8 servings It's usually this ladle probably almost 2 full ladles in every serving. And I normally serve this with Fritos, this type of corn chip. If you don't have anything similar to that, corn tortilla chips are also good. And I also like to add shredded cheddar cheese. You can use just about any kind of cheese you really like. I usually use sharp cheddar because I think it goes really well with the flavors. But Mexican blend cheddar, mild cheddar, Colby Jack, Monterey Jack cheese, pretty much anything. It's all good. Sometimes when I have it, I'll add a little bit of sour cream. That's also good on it. But there we have it. There's the chili. All that's leftovers. Don't you wish you were here to eat it?